Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here, and I am super excited today. I know I say that all the time because just about everyone who I interview, I'm always like super excited because it's awesome to talk to awesome people. But the person who I'm going to talk to today, his name is Pat Flynn. You may have heard of him from Smart Passive Income, or extremely popular podcast. You may have heard about him from my own videos here, or my podcast or blog posts where I've talked about him. And one of the main strategies that really helped me to figure out how to market myself. I remember, Pat Flynn stuff was really something that helped me more than anything else, was this idea of being everywhere. And I really took that to heart, and that was really something that I felt helped me to become successful. So I'm really excited to bring Pat on. So thanks for coming on, Pat.
Yeah, man, stoked to be here. Thank you again for the opportunity. And it's just so cool to hear that, like, you've been following my stuff, but not just following it, like taking action. And like, dude, you're doing so well right now. I'm so proud.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I think what really like your podcast was probably the first entrepreneurial podcast that I had really listened to, and I was following your stuff so closely, and it was like so many of the things and concepts and the things that you were doing were things that like helped me to get started to figure out what I needed to do, introduced me to a bunch of different people, different products, all the kind of things that I needed to basically to enter this bootstrapped entrepreneur world. And one of the big things that really helped me, I remember being a software developer,
Mhm.
and I didn't really even have the business, but I was just marketing myself as a software developer, was just that strategy of being everywhere. And I when I heard you say that, I was like, I am going to be everywhere. I'm going to be on YouTube. I'm going to be on podcasts. I'm going to, like, every time anyone ever talks about software development, they're going to find my name.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that I preach to developers, to teach them how to market themselves, and it's been such a useful concept.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm stoked to hear that. I mean, I'm learning from you now in the YouTube space. That's the one platform that I didn't really devote a lot of energy into the first nearly decade of my business, but now I'm going full force. And so thank you for all the advice and the inspiration there too.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm glad that I could help. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you're doing with YouTube, what your plan is here, and what's going on, and why the shift to the YouTube space. I'm a little curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A couple things happened. My blog and my podcast are doing so well right now. We just hit like 50 million downloads on the podcast, which is just incredible.
Wow.
But through building the team and creating the systems, it's all essentially automated now. The only thing I need to do is record. And I love that. And I love to have conversations like this over the podcast. But I lost a little bit of that like excitement of starting something new and a
Hmm.
little bit of the creativity that goes along with it. And I went to Portugal, my first time in Europe, not too long ago. And I brought a camera and I was like, what would happen if I just brought this camera and I turned it on most of the time and just kind of captured those moments when I stepped into Europe for the first time. And then I just got really interested in like, okay, how do I edit this thing that I captured into a really compelling story? Shared it on YouTube, and the feedback was just off the hook. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
believe people actually watched this thing that wasn't just like content, but it was creativity too, and how I put music in there and built the story up and all the interesting shots I made. And it just got me really interested in the YouTube platform again. I had put stuff up there a little bit every once in a while, demos and software examples over time, just over the last 9 years. I have had a YouTube channel for 9 years, but I never really devoted time into it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to search to see who else is on YouTube right now talking about the same stuff that I am about entrepreneurship, building online business. And of course, I found people like Gary Vee. And then I found all these people who are like, why are you here right now? Like, this is kind of, I hope people aren't following your advice right now because it's just going to lead them down a rabbit hole that they're not going to be happy to be in. Somebody needs to come in and show people how to really do it. I'm not
Yeah.
going to name any names, but a lot of scammy things, and it just made me kind of sick. And I was like, what if I were to infiltrate YouTube and be the person that everybody finds so that I can teach people how to do it the right way? And then I went to a video conference and I was just sharing that information with people. I was kind of teasing that I may or may not go about it. And everybody there was like, dude, you have to go in because they need you. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And so
Yeah.
we actually have a video studio set up here in San Diego where literally I can just walk in and hit record and go live, or record for YouTube. And because that was the biggest thing for me, even when I attempted to do YouTube before, was like, I hate setting up the cameras,
Exactly.
lights and stuff. So I was like, what can help me the most? Well, just have a space where I can walk in and then boom, it's done. And I've been going 5 days a week for 2 weeks now straight, and I'm already seeing a nice like kicking the algorithm and some videos and the subscribership. I mean, we're almost at 100K now. But again, I'm still learning as I go, and I'm learning from people like you and Roberto Blake and all these other people that we know in the YouTube space who are killing it. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember seeing your Portugal trip, and I thought, oh, this is cool. It's really interesting to see more, even more of like the person. I think YouTube is still true to its roots. Like what's successful on YouTube is real authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you're seeing your first time in this country and your excitement and the travel and the real things that you're doing, it's really interesting. Like I was like, oh, I got to watch this because I wanted to know. And so that's cool. And and I agree with you on just like it's interesting. Like there's you get such a connection with people, I think, with in the video format that you don't, and it creates almost like a celebrity. I mean, even when we were at the SD entrepreneur group, some guy came up to me and he's like, oh, you're John Sonmez, I watch your YouTube videos. And it's like, it's cool because it's like, people might hear your podcast or blog post, but it's a little bit of a different thing when they're like, I saw you on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's really cool to create that level of connection.
Although I will say that the vlog stuff is fun, and I get to be like just in my normal life and just record that. But I've definitely been getting a lot more views on stuff that actually is like things people would search for,
Sure.
but still injecting that personality in there. And I've been learning things like, okay, how do I hook people in the first 10 seconds of that video to make sure they still stick around and watch the whole way through? That's something that with the podcast, you don't really have to do as much because you have some more time to convince a person that they should listen to the podcast. But you're right. I mean, that's just there's just elements of YouTube that are unlike anything else. Much like with podcasting, there's stuff that's unique to podcasting too, like the passive listening aspect and whatnot. But yeah, dude, I'm super stoked. Like I wake up and I go to the studio and I'm like, this is so much fun. Like this is great. I love it.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, and I echo the same thing like you said. Like if you can tell with my setup here, I've got, everything is automated, right? It's like I've got a boom mic out here and I've got my light and the camera there. So it's like so I can just turn it on and go. It makes such a big difference, especially when you're producing the high volume, which is so critical for YouTube. Like almost all successful YouTubers are uploading at least one video a day. And it's like you got to be able to do that. So you got to be able to make it something so it's frictionless. So that's good that you've got that all set up and going with that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Cool. Well, awesome. So I want to, I'm curious about some of the things I'd like to ask you about is where you're at right now, just in business. I mean, you've been hustling for a long time. I'm curious just from a personal perspective because I've been separating myself out from the simple programmer brand. Now, it's John Sonmez for YouTube because that's the thing I'm really passionate about. But, I was on hustle mode for such a long time. And I know you've been, hustle mode. Where are you at like right now? Like, how do you feel like, do you feel like you need to take a breather? Do you feel like how does that affect you? Like, do you see a finish line in you know what I mean? Like where are you at, personally with all this? Do you feel like it's overwhelming? All that kind of.
Yeah, I love that question because it's almost like when you're painting on a canvas, right? Like my big question is, how does a painter know when that final brushstroke is done? Like you could always keep going, you can always add more color, but then eventually, you get so much paint on there, it's going to cake on and it's just going to ruin the great work that you did before. So you eventually have to take breaks and stop, and that's something that I feel over the last couple years, especially now that I have kids. Where is every minute of my day going, and is it going to exactly where it needs to go? Before kids, though, dude, I was like hustling like a crazy person, like Gary V hustle style. Now I still feel like I hustle, but I hustle in a smart way where hustle to me is also knowing when to take breaks, when to remove myself from the business so that I can be fully into, family time, because it's hard to do it. It blends like the family time and work time, especially during launches and more kind of aggressive moments in the business. But I've been doing a pretty good job over the last couple of years of balancing things out. And the first thing is just realizing that there's no such thing as perfect balance, right? Like if you think of a scale, there's only like one point at which it's perfectly balanced. And if you shoot for that your whole life, you're going to be disappointed any other time, which is most of the time. So I always shoot for, okay, let's just make sure the scale doesn't go too far to one side or the other. And I always try to balance things out. So if I go really heavy on the business for a while because there's a business launch or some sort of program I'm creating, I always make sure that on the other end of it, especially for my wife, who's likely working overtime to watch the kids normally when I'm in those situations, to make sure there's like a yang, there's the yin and the yang, the opposite on the other side, where I'm away from the business. And the nice thing about like passive income or creating businesses like this online is that once you set it up, then it's running, then it can go, then it's set up, and you can continually have it work for you over time. I'm not trading time for money. I'm investing time up front to make money later. And that's kind of what I build over time. That portfolio and the diversification just keeps growing and growing and growing, which is great. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are moments when I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm working so hard right now and I'm just tired of it. Or I might be just so deep into something that I started and I was excited about, but then I'm not excited about it anymore. So I have to question, like, okay, why am I feeling like this? A lot of times what helps me rebound though is remembering why I'm doing this in the first place. And if you can see this in the video behind me, I got some thank you notes from people. I mean, this is just a percentage and a fraction of all the handwritten thank you notes people have sent me. And this is what I look at. I have a folder in my Gmail of all the thank yous that my assistant makes sure to collect, because when I'm in moments where I'm just like tired, or I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I go in there and I get motivated, because then I remember, oh yeah, I'm not doing this for me, right? I'm doing this for the others out there who I'm serving, who would likely not build something they would want if I didn't actually do it first and show them the way. So it motivates me to know that there are other people on the other end who are kind of counting on me. And I like that pressure. A lot of people don't like that pressure or don't want as much, but I love that. But that's when I know I thrive. And I think that's the other thing too. I've gotten to when I work best, how I work best, and what motivates me. And, it's like, for example, in my groups, I'm in 2 mastermind groups, and part of the yearly meeting that we have is talking to each other about, okay, how do we best respond to certain kinds of teaching? Because some people love getting like the drill sergeant, like, I'm going to kick your butt, like, if you don't do this. Like, if somebody were to talk to me like that, even though they're trying to help, I just shrivel up into like a little ball and I create the shell. For me, I'm motivated by, okay, who am I serving? What are the rewards from doing it? Numbers and tracking motivate me. So my mastermind group members know that when they try to help me in that sort of way, other people know, like when we get upset at them. And so it's out of my comfort zone to be upset at somebody like that, but I try, because I know that that's how they respond. So yeah, hustle. I mean, I think hustle is important, but hustle also means knowing what works best for you, so that you can best serve everybody else. It's almost like on the airplanes, right? They always say, put the mask on yourself first, so that you can then help other people. A lot of times hustle to me is personal development and making sure that I'm in the best health possible, which is why fitness and nutrition is super important to me too. And also just rest.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's good. I think I see it in a similar way as having like seasons in life, where it's not like you can't just have the perfect balance all the time, but it's like you're doing this season, and then next you're doing this season where it's more like really hitting it heavy, and then you're backing off some. And I like that also, the concept. It's pretty cool to have a passive business, passive income, to have diversified stream, and you've automated things, so you can kind of take your foot off of the gas some, and the car is still going. So that's really a good concept as well.
I think it definitely stemmed from the very first business entrepreneurship book that I ever read, which was Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Workweek. Right? It was very much, hey, you don't have to trade your time for money. You can build these systems to work for you over time. You can outsource things. And that was the last piece of his puzzle that I got on board with way too late. I wish I hired others, to do that earlier. But yeah, man, I absolutely love the fact that you can build something and it continues to work for you. Now, sometimes I build things and it didn't work out like I thought, but it's still useful to go through that exercise, because, okay, now I know not to do that anymore. What could I improve? What could I do better? Or, okay, let's put that one away and let's try something else. And, I've learned over time now that failing is totally cool. Like that's part of just the process of being an entrepreneur, and really leading a fulfilled life is just experimenting, trying, and seeing what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was interesting too, just, and I'm sure you get this a lot too, just the concept of like, so sometimes I have to kick myself, and I'm like, John, you're like recording YouTube videos, and like you're doing like your job is like people's fun, but it's not
Yeah.
always fun. It's like, even, I mean, maybe people are like, you just have to record a podcast, man. Like, but you don't feel like it. Like, it's like anything you do will eventually be work. And
Yeah.
even if it's the dream life, it's like, you still have to get up and you still have to do it.
Mhm.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, you're talking about some of it's really interesting looking at your income reports and look at the diversification. Really, you have a huge diversification of income, like so many different sources that are coming in, which is great. That's awesome, because you can sleep a little better at night. You don't have to worry about one particular thing
Mhm.
drying up and taking your whole business. But I'm curious, like, personally, of the stuff that you've worked on, right? What is the thing that you feel like was the best thing that you put the time and effort into, right? And it doesn't have to be the most profitable, because, like, for me, I know there's some things where I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's different, but I've got income from certain sources, and I'm more excited about the income that comes from this source, because I
Yeah.
feel like it's more of like the thing that I love than this source. But what is the thing that, or if you have multiple of them, but what is at least one of the things that you feel like is like the best thing that you did that you're continuing to get benefit from?
Yeah, there's so many income streams. For example, affiliate marketing or software,
Mm.
creating your own products, advertising, live events, books, digital books, all those kinds of things. I think out of everything, if you had to force me to pick one, which is what I'm going to try to do right now, I would say that it was the time that I spent writing my book, Will It Fly, and
Hmm.
launching that and getting it into people's hands. And it's definitely not anywhere near the most profitable diversification stream, but like you said, I think it was the most meaningful, and it does play a role in the other income streams as well, because if I could serve people through something small like a book, they're in my ecosystem, then they're also seeing the other recommendations for affiliate products, and they might want to work with me more through live events or courses and things like that. So it does play a role in terms of like the introduction of who I am and how I teach, and then if somebody wants to go deeper with me, they can, and some of that is free and some of that's paid stuff. But man, that book was just a struggle to write.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, now that I look back and I see people, even still, it's 2.5 years later now. It became a Wall Street Journal bestseller as a self-published book. It's getting published in, I think it's in 8 countries now. It will be published in 8 countries. It's just blowing my mind how people are still using that information. I get emails every week from people who are like, just read your book, friend recommended it, which that's like a cool part in and of itself. But then they're seeing results from stuff that I teach them in the book. And that to me is just like, man, I haven't even like touched that book in 2 years or 3
Yeah.
years, and it's still going out there and making an impact. And like I said, I mean, I make like $3, right, for every paperback book that I sell. But that I don't care. Like,
Right.
I'm helping a person out, and I know in some way, shape, or form, it's going to come back to me in return, whether it's monetary through a purchase of something or even just through sharing. And so I'm just super thankful for that. But it was a struggle, man. Like, I had to hire a coach to help me through that book, but I knew in that book was going to be so important to the beginning stages of an entrepreneur's life, for those who are struggling with just, I don't think I could do it, I don't think I have enough time, what if it doesn't work out, I'm scared of failure. Like, that's really what that book tackles. And I'm so glad I did it, though. Like, to me, that's the most fulfilling and meaningful, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so interesting that the book process, because so many people ask all the time, like, ask me about, like, is it worth writing a book or not? And from a financial perspective, it rarely is,
Hmm.
because it's like the hardest thing you can do that has the lowest price tag, right? It's like making a video course. I can make a video course in a day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I could tape an interview and I can have a $99 video course that literally I put together in a day from someone interviewing me or something like that. Whereas a book is like a months long process. It's like you're doubting yourself, you're doing all
Yeah.
this
Oh
stuff,
my
and
gosh.
then it's like $9 and you only get a couple of it, and it's but it there's something about it, like, putting that much into it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Well, yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So one thing, a lot of people that subscribe to my channel, they want to be entrepreneurs, right? They're
Mhm.
the want to entrepreneur, category, and they don't know, like, and again, I struggle with this sometimes, helping people when I'm coaching them, is getting over that, like, getting that traction point, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, if you can make $2,000 a month, you can make $10,000 a month. But making two is so hard,
Right.
right? For so many people to get started. From all your experience, with everything you've done and all the people that you've talked to, if you were to give someone like, okay, here's how you go from zero to building like a $2,000 a month business, what is kind of the path that you would take or advise someone to take today?
Yeah, no, that's perfect advice. And a lot of times, it's almost like Newton's law, right? An object at rest tends to stay at rest. But once you get in motion, right, like then things start happening. And so that's not a perfect quote of Newton's law, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm helping people who are just at the start, a lot of it starts with, well, what do you really want? And let's work backwards from there, because a lot of people just jump into entrepreneurship because it's nowadays the cool thing to do, and they're like, I want to make figures, because that's the magic number, and getting to there is going to take a different set of actions versus getting to $2,000 a month. So if you're at a point where you know that, okay, my goal, let's just start with $2,000 a month, then that's already ahead of where most people are. It's going to set you in the right direction, because now realistic sort of actions to get there. And then I always try to break that down to show in somebody's head that that's not going to be super hard. So you could, for example, help out one person really well. And if you provide $2,000 of value or more back to them in exchange for like the skills that you're giving them, right? You just need one client to pay you $2,000 a month. And
Right.
that, some people are like, that's it? Like, I don't know who would pay me $2,000 a month, but if I could figure out a way to do that, then it becomes a little bit more tangible, right? Okay, maybe not $2,000 a month, but what if you had two clients who paid you $1,000 a month, right? Or you can keep going in the math, and you could go as far as like, oh, I'm going to build a 99-cent application and just have 2,000 people download it a month, right? You could do that, but I think in the middle somewhere, you, especially as a developer, right, you have services and skills that you could offer in exchange for that income, and it's not going to be as far out of reach as it might seem when you put the math into place. And that's what's really cool about this. You may only need to serve a few clients really well in order to reach that goal, and it becomes a lot more tangible. And that often motivates people just right then and there, because most people who dive into this are just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how this is going to work. I don't have any goals. I don't have an address in the navigation system. I'm just going to go. And what happens when you go in a car with no navigation address put in, you're just going to run out of gas, right? And you're just going to loop around or drive in circles, or perhaps drive further away from where your destination actually is. So having some sort of goal is like number one. And then number two, I think this is really important, is it's understanding what your superpowers are, right? You're a programmer, but what makes you a unique programmer? And I always use the analogy of like in Shark Tank. If you've ever watched Shark Tank, right? Like you see the business owners go in there and they're like pitching their idea or their business. And then Mr. Wonderful, right? Kevin O'Leary, he like puts his fingers together. He's like, what's stopping me from what's stopping me from hiring somebody to build that exact thing? Like, why should I work with you? Why can't I just hire somebody to do that for me? Why you? And you have to know how to answer that question, because when you're trying to get clients or trying to do work for people, they're going to ask you the same thing. Maybe not directly, but in their head, they're asking, well, why do I need to work with this person? And if you have a clear superpower, a differential, an unfair advantage, something that makes you different than the other ones that are out there, well, you're going to be so much more ahead of the game. It's going to make your life easier when you're sharing what you can do for other people. And it's going to make your life easier when it comes to the emails that you're going to write, to the sales copy that you're going to create. It's just going to allow yourself to stand out, because the last thing you want to do is blend in this space where everybody's fighting for each other's attention, right? And so that's another thing. And I think is something to show, or something that a person who you might want to work with can feel or touch or look at. That's also really important too, getting the other senses involved in that way. So for a programmer, it might be some sort of unique way of solving some problem that this person knows exists, that is perhaps just even a wireframe of something, just to show that you're progressively thinking about that person or that company and how you might be able to serve them. I think especially nowadays, just going a little bit extra goes a very, very long way. So, okay, what's everybody else doing? How far are they going? Just take one step further and do something that's going to help you also stand out as well. And then number three is just go, like, do it. Put yourself out there. You're not going to know everything. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. You might not know how to do something, but just go and do it anyway, because that's what's going to give you the best the best advice and teaching is just experience. I mean, I went to school for 5 years for architecture. I couldn't even get a job because I
Mm.
didn't have certain software experience they didn't even teach that in school, right? So I had to go and get that experience first before I could get hired, and I had to do that in sort of creative ways. And honestly, school only taught me how to do certain things, but in the real world, that's when I learned how it actually worked. And so putting yourself out there and just trying and making mistakes and falling forward, that's how you keep progressing. So, I know that's more mindset for those who are just at the beginning. That's the issue. It's up here for you, right? It's not anything about likely your skills or all these deliverables. It's what's in your head that's stopping you, right? And then once like, it's so funny because once you get to like the few $1,000s a month level, like I've noticed with like the people I coach, it's just so much easier to coach them, right? Because they've
Yeah.
already gotten over those mental barriers that are holding them back. So often for those who are just starting out, you have to realize that you're probably holding yourself back from where you want to go. Nothing else but you and the limiting beliefs that you have. And once you get over that, and that's not easy to do, oftentimes you can get help from others and outside perspectives, or just internally think about, okay, let's appreciate the small wins along the way, or let's break this big goal down into a lot of smaller milestones. Those are some tactics you can use specifically to help you get over those limiting beliefs. But it's you, man. It's you. You got to get over yourself before anybody else will want to work with you.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement with you. Definitely that mental aspect is so important of I before I was introduced to this whole world, I was sitting in a cubicle with other people who were sitting in cubicles, and our reality was that this is not possible. Our reality was you get a job, you work the job,
Right.
you
Or you're
negotiate a salary.
conditioned to believe that, right? Like that's
Right,
just what
yeah.
society or your parents or whoever. I mean, that's what I believed. I went to school for 5 years and I
Yep.
got, great grades, and I worked at an architecture firm, and that's what I wanted to do, right? Until 2008 when I got laid off. My life was like flipped around. I was into the small state of depression. But then like I kind of woke up from that and I was like, wait, I did everything I was supposed to, yet I still got out. Like, how can I take and do this on my own? And that opened up my eyes to all these opportunities that were out there that I was just so blind to. I didn't even know this stuff was possible because nobody taught me, right? Which is why it's super cool for all your viewers and listeners to be like, getting help from you, because John's teaching you and I'm teaching you and other people are out there, but you have to make that decision to want to learn and to
Yeah.
take action, right? Right. Like, how many people sitting in that cubicle next to you were probably unhappy, but weren't doing anything about it, right?
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, you did something about it. Something happened to me such that I could then open my eyes. So just again, all internal, all mental, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely the key point. Now, let's suppose someone's doing they've got the goal in mind, right? They've got multiple ways. So like, yeah, 4 times $500 a month, I can make 2 grand. They have their unique superpower. They've figured out, okay, this is what makes me unique,
Mhm.
and they're ready. They got the mindset. They believe that they can do this. The only thing that they're missing is the people to sell to, the traffic, the audience. How do they get that step? What would you do today to, because a lot of times I think, you know I think that's what I'm seeing is a lot of entrepreneurs today is they're like they've got these pieces because they're listening to the right stuff, but then it's like, well, I'm ready to sell my thing, and then it's like, well, but there's no one out there to to sell it to, and you've got a huge audience, I've got a big audience. For us, we can like, oh yeah, there we go, bam, and then we're
Right.
making money. But for those people, it's like, oh, well, how do I even actually get this going? What would you advise them to do today to get that ball rolling?
So number one is make the goal one person, one
Mhm.
client, one customer. Yes, I know you're going to want more, obviously, but you're not going to get two unless you get one first. You're not going to have 10. You're not going to have 1,000 customers until you get that first one. And the work that is involved with getting one is obviously different than getting 1,000, but it starts with one. And
Mhm.
that's going to teach you a lot about, okay, how do I best convince one person with me? Then how do I best work with that person once they do want to work with me? That's going to teach you so much about what it's like to work with a client or have a customer, and just work on that. But then you can scale from there, which is cool. You can take what worked and amplify it, you can avoid, didn't work with one person, and thankfully you just only worked with one and you made a ton of mistakes. Now you don't have to make those mistakes with your next clients who are now going to have a better experience with you. Now, there's still that question of how can we get one though? The thing to do is this is where the hustle comes in. You got to get out of that shell. You got to get uncomfortable because all the most awesome stuff that happens in life is outside of your comfort zone, and you have to ask. Right? It sounds simple. You just got to ask.
Yeah.
People aren't going to magically know you have this amazing superpower to offer, but you have to go out there and find those people, and you have to do some research and understand where they might exist on other websites or groups on Facebook, or they might even exist in your current network right now. You just have to present yourself to those people to see if it's something that they would want, and then you work with them. I would start with just sending a message to all your friends and your network, right? And just be like, hey guys, I'm starting this business. This is what I offer. This is how it's going to work. I'm just looking to work with one person. Because of that, I'm only going to do it for this price, a little bit cheaper. Just, you don't want to do it for free though, because once you do it for free, you're going to get people who are just saying yes because you're offering it for free. You want to see if people will actually pay for this. This is part of the validation process to see, can I actually convince a person to part with some money to work with me? And then the second process, the second phase is like, can I actually deliver the value that is expected from that transactional, that transaction that happened? Again, like I said, this is already going to teach you so much by focusing down on that one client. But then you just got to go ask and put yourself out there. And what's the worst that can happen, especially with your friends who, you likely have some sort of relationship already. The worst that can happen is they're going to say no. But even if they say no, they might be like, this isn't for me, but I know a guy who this might be helpful for him. Do you mind if I introduce you to him? Referrals are key too. So that's where I would start, keeping it simple before creating the business cards, creating the website, working on your social media accounts, right? That's the fun, sexy stuff that people want to do because, they get those endorphins from the likes and the shares, and that's really fun. And it's cool to see your logo. Yeah, I get it. That'll come. But can you build the business first and get one customer? Everything else is going to just explode from there. So just focus on one.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. That's solid. And then that this works. You've got some confidence. You've got a reference experience to lean on.
Mhm.
What about now taking that up to like the traffic level? Like if you're, I guess, and this is kind of an interesting, I think, thing to consider too. I definitely would like your input on it because I get asked this all the time as well. Is now that you're doing the YouTube, right? You're focusing on the YouTube. I mean, you've done podcasts, you've done blogging, you've done YouTube. I don't know if you've done, I'm not really much on Instagram or Snapchat, but I'm sure you've dabbled in those areas, or what was the the live streams and whatnot. What medium would you pick today? Like if you're starting out today, knowing everything that you've done.
If it depends on what it is that you're offering, right? If it's a very visual
Mhm.
thing that you're going to do for people, then definitely I would start with something like YouTube, right? Most people would
Mhm.
say like a blog, but you know what? Like people are expecting some additional layers of advice and flavor to what it is that you're teaching nowadays. So, although a blog and a website is important, no matter which medium you choose, because it's still important to have like a home base that you can control. Because if
Yeah.
you build like a YouTube following, for example, and then your YouTube account gets shut down, or YouTube goes away, or somebody buys it, or whatever, like you want somewhere where you can control things, and that's typically your website and your corresponding email list to go along with it. But if I was to start, if it was very visual and something that I was comfortable doing, like getting behind the camera, I would do YouTube for sure. If I was
Mhm.
less comfortable on camera, or maybe my thing was a lot more informational and I could use a lot of storytelling to teach, then I would start with a podcast. That's where you start to amplify your message. You start to hone in on your craft. You can also utilize both spaces, YouTube and podcasting, to connect with other people too. That's how I was able to, get access to people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Tim Ferriss, because I had a place to invite them on my
Right.
podcast,
Yeah.
right? And very same thing with YouTube. If you start to build a somewhat of an audience, that's valuable to other people to get in front of. It's also going to be valuable to advertisers and sponsors too. So there's ways to make money and diversify through those means as well. But with the podcast and YouTube specifically, I think that best showcase your personality, the way that you teach, the way that you like to talk and work with people. That just gives people a taste of what may happen if they were to work with you and actually pay you for that, right? So especially if you do anything like coaching, gosh, podcasting specifically for coaching is perfect because you can actually share samples of coaching or teach through the podcast.
Mhm.
And it's essentially, hey, this is what you're going to get when you pay, and this is going to be personalized to you. So that's really interesting. So, same thing with like online courses and things like that too. I think no matter what medium you choose, however, a great way to rapidly grow is to, I mean, there's basically two top ways to do it. One of them is paid advertising, right? Like to get in front of that target audience and have them see that you exist now. That's a direct line to those people, but you have to pay for that.
Right.
And a lot of people are bootstrapping, so they often avoid that. And only now recently have I started paying for ads for. I've done everything bootstrapped and organically up till about last year. But the other way, and this is how I grew, was through relationship building. So,
Yeah.
becoming friends and networking and getting access to those big targeted audiences that already exist through genuine relationship building, not by snarky, sneaky things, but literally just wanting to add value to that audience and building friends with that influencer, such that, if you provide value to them, likely human nature will kick in and the law of reciprocity, they'll want to come back and give you a kickback too. Just like how you're giving me the chance to come here on video now. Now I know for sure that at some point in the future, we're going to have you on the show and talk on the podcast or feature you on the YouTube channel in some way, right? Like these collaborations obviously are more, specifically well planned on YouTube more than any other platform. But I think collaborations / just relationships, the best way to scale with somebody who has trust with an audience already versus you going cold.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's really good advice. I think to be able to leverage there, and I like your emphasis on having real relationships with people. It's not, yeah, I'm sure you get all those emails from people that are like, oh, I want to. It's like an introduction from someone who they are going to try and put on your podcast, not directly from the person,
Yeah.
or to
Really?
feature a blog post or link, or can you send this to your email audience as if you're just going to do that?
Yeah.
And it's like there's no relationship, there's nothing there.
I mean, I think a great thing that everybody can do in the space that you're in or the
Mm,
niche market that you're targeting is make a list of all the top influencers. Like find the top authors on Amazon, like they're listed there. All the top podcasts in that space. Find all the top YouTube channels. Find all the top Twitter accounts. Find all the top Instagram accounts. There's your list of people who you should be at least following and paying attention to. And perhaps there's one that you see that like went to the same college as you. You can reach out to that and use that as
yeah,
like, hey, I'm also a Cal grad. Like, when did you graduate? That's awesome. I see what you're doing here. I love it. I talk about the same thing. If you ever want somebody to come on and talk about, specialization goes here, I'd love to add value to your audience. Again, make it about them. I'd love to add value to your audience and come on your podcast, and I'd just love to share some info about specialization. And that way, you're not competing with them. You're actually
yeah,
adding value to what they have because likely that person already has a big audience. They're talking about a large number of topics. You can be the one that they're like, oh my gosh, like, hey, here's John. He has this specialization that is just so he's going to dive into it for those of you who just want to hone in more on that specific part of real estate or whatever. That's how you break into those audiences is by taking that specialization that we talked about earlier, and obviously knowing who those people are and then just offering that value to them. You're going to get a kickback in return in some way.
exactly. Yeah, and I really like that concept of niching down, of that specialization, because then it's like you said, you've got something valuable to offer, and you're not competing with them, and that's so key. So here's one thing that I get asked all the time. This is funny because a lot of the people that I coach ask me this. They're like, how does Pat Flynn make so much money on Bluehost?
Yeah.
It's funny though, because Bluehost is one of my, like, I think I'm not publishing income reports, but I think I do like $2,500 to $3,000 a month of
Yeah.
referrals to Bluehost. So, but you do like 10 times that amount on average. What is it? Is it one page? Is it where's the
No, that's a
Bluehost
great
stuff coming
question.
from? Yeah.
So I actually published a blog post a while back sharing exactly the breakdown percentage wise of where
Mm,
these sales are coming from. And it's not one page, it's multiple things that kind of work together. So like the first piece of the puzzle was a YouTube video that I published a long time ago. It was literally how to set up your blog step by step. And obviously through
mm,
that step by step process, there was a hosting company that I recommended, and I showed you exactly how to sign up and build your thing. So people wanted the transformation, or they wanted that final end thing, and I was giving them the tools to do it. And one of those tools just happened to be Bluehost. Now, that was a demo that I then shared on a bunch of blog posts. I put on my resource page as well. I have a resource page on my website, which basically links to all the things that I ever mentioned that I know will be helpful for people. And Bluehost and ConvertKit and Lead Pages are some of the top 3 that I definitely know people want. Now, when you really think about it, what am I helping people do? Build an online business that they can use as either side income or full-time income if they want it. Now, what's like the first thing you need when you think of, besides like a good idea and such? Like, in order to start an online business, what do you need? You need to get online. How do you do that? You need a website.
That's
So
true.
Bluehost specifically is like the first step. So the big lesson here for everybody is, if you're doing any affiliate marketing or creating any products, what's the first step for your audience?
I love it.
Like, just think of that. Okay,
Yeah.
how can we help them get that first step? Sometimes it exists already, and you can just be an affiliate for that first step. Sometimes it doesn't exist because it's, your special way of teaching something. It's the first step. Well, then that's where your product can come into play. Because the first step is really important, because then nothing else matters after. Everything else happens only after that first step.
Right.
So that's why it was really big. Also, I just mention it casually, just organically through normal things. Actually, I did a case study in 2010 where I built a website from scratch, and I showed people how I picked the niche, how I created the content for the website, the keyword research tools I was using, all those kinds of things. And I just literally just gave it all away for free. Now, part of that process, right, obviously, was, after finding the niche, was building the website. And it just so happened that, like, step 4 in this 10-step process was, go to this website. If you use this link, I do get a commission. And I remember that when that project was over, I came out with a post, I think it was like a month later. All those things were on the website already, the Bluehost link, etc. I made an announcement post that website that I had built had gotten to #1 in Google for the term that I was hunting for, and that was security guard training. It was a security guard training website. And the day that everybody found out that it was #1 and it was starting to make money through advertising, everybody had apparently gone back to the steps, step 1 to 10, and was just literally following its step-by-step process, because now I had proof. Now I
Right.
had proof, and people were like, I can do it too. You made it so simple to follow. And again, when they get the step 4, there's an affiliate commission for me there, which is really cool. And do you think that they're going to be happy to go through that link because I'm giving all this information for free?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
And I have proof to back it up too. So anyway, that's why it has continued to do so well, because I give people what they want, and it just so happens to be a part of that process. And I make it easy for them to click through. And also, I also share, like, hey, if you have any problems with them, like, go to me. I can get you connected with the right guy to fix your problems, and that helps because people know that they're not just going to be left in the dust. So all those kinds of things are good, affiliate marketing strategies.
Awesome. Yeah. I really like that concept. I mean, that first step concept, I think, is so powerful. What you just said there is, I mean, that just applies. Like, I can think of so many places where it applies. Is like, whatever you're trying to do, figure out the first step that whatever you're teaching someone to do, that they need to do, and bam, that's where. I mean, that's where that's the beginning of your funnel. That's where less people drop off. They have to hit that first. So do that first. That definitely makes a lot of sense. I think that'll be really helpful.
Cool.
So one more question here, and then I want to give you a chance to first of all, for everyone that's watching, listening, make sure right now, rather than just doing this right at the end, make sure that you stop what you're doing, pause for a second, and go over to Pat's channel. Okay, Pat
Yes,
Flynn,
thank you.
and click the subscribe button. Go click that subscribe button. And hey, you know what? You should probably even go over there and click the little bell so that you can make sure that you see his videos when they come out, because they're awesome. Okay, so I want you guys to do that. Take the time to do that. Pat is taking the time to come on and give you some real good value here. So make sure that you take the time to do that. I would appreciate it. I'm sure
Thanks,
that
John.
Pat would as
I
well. So
appreciate that. Yeah, the channel name is the URL is youtube.com/smartpassiveincome, but Pat Flynn is my name, and I'd love for you to I'd love the invite. I'd love to invite all of you to the channel. I've got, again, we're trying for 5 days a week for as long as we can go, and we're already recorded through March. So we got a lot of good stuff coming for you, especially if you're into entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Yeah. So guys, check it out. And like I
Thank you.
said, it'll be when this goes live, it should be in the cards. It should be in the description. I'll make it easy for you to just click there. And so you can go and subscribe. So
Thanks, man.
and so one thing I want to definitely, I think probably we're running out of time here. Some of this is probably the last thing to discuss
Okay.
is how has all of this changed your life? Not just the money, because I mean the money definitely changes people's lives for sure,
Mhm.
in less ways than many people think. I think that's one thing that's interesting. Is people are always like, oh, if I had money, I would have no problems. You
Yep.
have more problems, you have more money, definitely.
Money amplifies the problems that you have sometimes.
It's a multiplier, right? If
Yep.
I said like if you're a drug addict and you get more money, now you're a bigger drug addict, right? It's like, um, but how overall has like this, this journey, from making the money, yes, that's part of it, but impacting other people, the growth that you've experienced, falling down, getting up, doing things that work, doing things that didn't work, working with people, how has this impacted your life overall,
Uh-huh.
right? Because this is kind of the thing. It's like people are always looking for these goals, and I'm like, well, it's not necessarily about like making the money or making it right. It's like maybe you can talk about your experience of just how this has changed things, and would you do things a different way? Would you give this up?
Would I give this up? Definitely not. I mean, I am in control of my own life at this point. When I do things very well and when I serve a lot of people, and I serve them in a way that I know can help them, I get rewarded for that, right? And there's no limitation to that, right? Like I remember when I was working in architecture, I could work really hard one day,
Yeah.
or I could just be super lazy another day, and I thing, right? Like it was the same outcome every time. I just get paid X dollars for X hours, no matter how hard I worked or what exactly I did. Besides, like the annual bonuses, which were it's like it's hardly anything. But now I know that my life is under my control, and how successful I want to be is up to me, which is the coolest thing, right? My own boss. But more than that, it's given me a lot of confidence, like making the decision to become an entrepreneur, which didn't actually happen the moment I got laid off, right? Actually, my first reaction was trying to get back in. I called every single architecture firm I knew, every single engineering firm I knew, and I was like, please let me back. But nobody was hiring at the time because it was the recession. It was actually a year later after I started making money by helping pass an architecture exam. That was actually my first business, was helping people pass an exam in the architecture industry. I
And
got
it's
a
still
call.
going on. I was checking.
Oh
It's
yeah,
amazing. You're still making money from
it's
that.
like
It's
a
great.
decade
But
old. I haven't touched it in
yeah.
5 years, and it's still generating a few thousand
Yeah.
dollars a month now, which is pretty crazy. But I got a call from my boss, the same one who let me go, and he pitched me this amazing deal. He said, "Pat, like I want you back. I started my own firm. I brought some of your colleagues. We're going to work with the same clients. I'm going to give you an office. I'm going to give you a pay raise, and he said I'm going to give you a year's worth of rent for free." Like
Oh wow. Yeah.
he wanted me bad. And the crazy part was it didn't take me more than 2 seconds to just say, you know what, thank you, but no thanks. Click. And that to me was my defining moment, that I knew that I was going to do entrepreneurship for good, because that's when actually I realized that, yes, this is my new path and I should go all in with it. And it was then that I started to put the resources behind, the work that I need to be, okay, let's get a little bit smarter with where my time is. Let's try to amplify the success that we have now. So I think it's, again, going back to the mental, like it's that making that you do to say, yes, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go for it. That's really when things started to change. Personally, and in my life, the best thing about this whole thing, which relates to this control and the freedom that can come with it, is the fact that I got two young kids now. I mean, they're not so young anymore, but 8 and 5, my son and my daughter,
Mm.
and like my wife and I walk them to school every day. We pick them up at the same time. We just go on vacations because we can. I mean, we don't do it all the time. We don't live in a huge mansion. Drive a Toyota Sienna. My other car's a Tesla though, but it's like we have these choices now that we can make, and money and time is not, although the kids are in school, and that is something that we have to make sure they continue to do. But the main thing in the freedom and just the flexibility, really, that's the key word, the flexibility. It just allows for us to not have those other things bearing down on us that would suffocate these options for us, especially for my kids. Like I want to give them all the options in the world, and by being an entrepreneur, I'm helping them have those options. I'm also being an example for them that they can, make these choices in their life, whether they want to become an entrepreneur or not. At least they'd have the skill set to be great at what they do, and have the confidence to make the choices that they want to make. But man, the family thing and being able to spend time with them and be there to witness all their firsts is huge. And then beyond my family, beyond my business now, I'm looking at other ways to make an impact that I never thought I would be able to do. For example, my community at Smart Passive Income and I, we built 2 schools in Ghana. And I went to Ghana in
Yeah.
2015 to look at some of those schools and walk through them and meet the kids and the teachers who were impacted as a result of the work that I was doing. And I was just like, because I couldn't believe that I was a major reason why they were now learning, which has a major impact on their economy, which there's just a huge trickle down effect. And I'm an advisor for that organization now, Pencils of Promise. But now I'm working in education here in the U.S. to try and make some change and trying to get entrepreneurship in schools now. I never thought I'd have the ability to even think about making some sort of difference in that way, right? It was just survival and kind of living life back in architecture. Now it's past the survival stage. It's past the thriving stage. It's like, okay, let's make an impact in ways that we didn't even think was possible. Like who I'm looking up to now is people like Elon Musk, and not just because it's Tesla or SpaceX, but because of just the way he thinks these things that most people think are impossible, but then he
Yeah.
does them. And I think I need work in thinking bigger, because all the stuff that I'm doing now, I never thought was possible either, but here I am. So what else am I holding myself back from? That's why I'm getting inspiration from people like him. But anyway, it's just opened my eyes, and it's given me the confidence. It's given me the skill set
Yep.
to basically give me options, really more than anything.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. And just one thing I'll say on that for those of you listening, I wouldn't be here probably making these YouTube videos, right? In teaching what I teach, if it weren't for Pat, right? Because I listened to his podcast. That's what got me going. That's what really, was kind of one of the things that was a key element in sparking me creating this YouTube channel and my podcast and my blog and all of that and Simple Programmer and whatnot. And then I know that some of you, right, you've created your own YouTube channels, or you've created your own, and the people that you impact, right? And so there's this, like, you're going to have a legacy as well. And so it's like, you're going to impact people that are going to impact people. And so it's a really powerful concept. And it just, it just occurred to me as Pat was saying all this. I'm like, wow, it's like, everything that I'm doing probably wouldn't exist had Pat not made that decision
Right.
to do this. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because you need to make that decision. Otherwise, you're robbing other people who you're going to inspire someday and encourage from living this life that Pat just described, right?
Yeah,
So that's it's
right.
it's your duty.
But also, I'm like, somebody taught me, right?
Mhm.
And people taught that person who taught me. So we're just keeping it going. Don't be where it stops, right? Like it's like the domino effect. You don't want to be that hand that just stops and then all the other dominoes don't get to go, right? So just keep it going.
Exactly. Yeah, that's your mission.
Love
You
it.
owe it to everyone else who could experience this. So, well, thank you, Pat. This has been awesome. It's been really cool to hang out with you.
For sure.
Like I said, it's been one of my definite aspirations to be able to interview you someday. It's amazing. I never thought it would happen. I mean, when I'm listening to your podcast, and here you are on my YouTube channel. So that's really cool. And I'll just have to say one more time, you guys, call to action. You know what it is. Go over to Smart Passive Income YouTube channel. Go over to Pat's channel and click that subscribe button, and make sure you subscribe and check out his videos. They're really good. So,
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you all. I appreciate you.
all right, take care.